Syria's President Bashar Assad welcomed a group of Russian politicians to Damascus following airstrikes carried out by the US, Britain and France. Assad hosted a meeting with the politicians and is reported by state media to have told his visitors that the US, Britain and France had waged a campaign of lies and misinformation against Russia and Syria. US Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley confirmed that US will impose new sanctions on Russia. Haley said that the sanctions would target companies that supply Damascus with equipment and other materials related to chemical weapons. The sanctions will be announced by Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin. Russian President Vladimir Putin warned that further Western attacks on Syria would bring chaos to world affairs. In a telephone conversation with his Iranian counterpart Hassan Rouhani, Putin and Rouhani agreed that the Western strikes had damaged the chances of achieving a political resolution in the 7-year Syria conflict. French President Emmanuel Macron said he convinced US President Donald Trump to maintain troops in Syria. In a telephone calls before the airstrikes, Macron had persuaded Trump not to pull out of Syria. Macron also told Vladimir Putin that Russia had been complicit in the use of chemical weapons in Syria. Thousands of Iraqis who are followers of influential Shiite Muqtada al-Sadr took the streets to protest against airstrikes carried out by the United States, France and Britain against Syrian military targets and show support for the Syrian people. Supporters waved Iraqi anti-American and anti-Israeli slogans. The Arab League called for an international probe into the criminal use of chemical weapons in Syria and condemned what it saw as Iran's interference in the affairs of other countries. Saudi Arabia and Iran have for decades been locked in a struggle for regional supremacy that is now being played out in proxy wars in several countries, including Yemen and Syria. The leader of Lebanon's Hezbollah said that Western strikes on Syria had failed to terrorize the army, help insurgents, or even serve Israel's interest. Syed Hassan Nasrallah added that the US military had kept its strikes limited because it knew a wider attack would spark retaliation from Damascus and its allies. The world's first ultra-high voltage direct current transmission line was finished on Sunday. This after the large span towers was completed over the Yangtze River in East China's Anhui province. The transmission line starts from the Jiangxi-Hui Autonomous Prefecture, northwest China's Xinjiang-Ugyo Autonomous Region, and ends in the town of Guquan-Wuhu City in East China's Anhui, passing through 6 provinces and an autonomous region. Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker participated in a wreath-laying ceremony on the 5th anniversary of the fatal blast at the Boston Marathon. Boston plans to mark the anniversary with solemn ceremonies and remembrances to honor the victims of the blasts. 3 people were killed and 264 others were injured after a homemade pressure cooker bomb tore through the crowd in 2013. Saudi Arabia's King Salman slammed Iran's blatant interference in the region and lashed out at the US over Jerusalem as Arab leaders met in the kingdom for the annual summit. The 82-year-old monarch dubbed the Arab League meet the Jerusalem summit as he took aim at Washington's decision to recognize the disputed city as the capital of Israel and transfer the US embassy from Tel Aviv. Now, Pope Francis comforted a child who lost his atheist father in Rome. He told the child that it is God who decides who goes to heaven, and that since God has a dad's heart, the child's father is likely to go to heaven. The leader of the world's 1.2 billion Catholics was visiting the parish of St. Paul of the Cross in Rome's Corviel neighborhood. US President Donald Trump set off a barrage of early morning tweets directed at James Comey ahead of the former FBI chief's highly anticipated TV interview. He called Comey the worst FBI director in history and challenged the accusation Comey made in a tell-all book that is due for release this week. Now, adult film actress Stormy Daniels will attend a court hearing in New York on Monday for US President Donald Trump's personal lawyer Michael Cohen. Cohen is due in Manhattan federal court as part of a criminal investigation largely related to his business practices. He was ordered to appear as his lawyers try to hold off prosecutors from reviewing documents and other materials seized last week in raids on his home, office and hotel room. The wife of former US President George W. Bush is in failing health and has decided to no longer seek medical treatment. The former First Lady Barbara Bush, who is also the mother of former President George W. Bush, will instead focus on comfort care. According to a statement, she has said that a series of recent hospitalizations and is 92 years old. Thousands of pensioners demonstrate in Madrid demanding for better state pensions after the government of Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy raised pensions by just 0.25% this year. After months of pensioners demonstrating across the country, Spanish government included tax breaks for surviving spouses claiming pensions and those on minimum state pensions in this year's draft budget. Now, Israel will release about 200 jailed African migrants in the absence of a final deal to deport them and thousands more Eritrean and Sudanese men who entered the country illegally. Now, the government has been trying to finalize an agreement with Uganda to take in the migrants who came into Israel on foot through the Egyptian border over the past decade. Now, Guatemalans voted in a referendum to decide whether or not the International Court of Justice based in The Hague should resolve a 100-year-old territorial dispute with its neighbor Belize. Although Guatemala recognized the independence of Belize in the early 1990s, it never accepted its borders and continues to claim some 11,000 square kilometers. Two members of Pakistan's Christian community were killed in the country's southwest when unknown gunmen opened fire on a small group that had just left a local church. The churchgoers were on their way home in Quetta, the capital of Pakistan's Balochistan province. Balochistan is plagued by violence by Sunni Islamist sectarian groups linked to the Taliban, Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. Kim Jong-un pledged to jointly write a new chapter of the country's friendship with China during a meeting with a senior Chinese official, Song Tao, in Pyongyang. During the meeting, Kim asked Song to convey his best regards to Xi Jinping and welcomed the Chinese performing art troupe headed by Song to the Spring of April International Friendship Art Festival. Protesters entered a Philadelphia Starbucks and demanded the manager be fired after the arrest of two black men in the store earlier in the week who were accused of trespassing. The men said that they were waiting for a friend before ordering at Starbucks. Now, the Starbucks chief executive Kevin Johnson had apologized for the arrest of the two men, which sparked accusations of racial profiling.
If you're an artist, if you go work at the office, the New Yorker, the mediocrity, the New Yorker. A revolution?
Pro-European Union politician Milo Djukanovic has won Montenegro's presidential election with 53.9% of votes, according to a projection by pollster the Center for Monitoring and Research. A veteran politician and former Prime Minister, was a major player in politics from 1991 to 2016 and announced that he would go back to politics last month. General Motors confirmed its plans to eliminate a shift at an Ohio plant, idling some 1,500 employees as demand for compact car dips. The downsizing of the workforce in Lordstown, Ohio, was related to historic market changes that spelled lower demand for compact cars. Meanwhile, General Motors competitors Ford and Fiat have also announced plans to cut back on passenger car production in the US. Spring storms that spawned tornadoes in southern US and blizzards in the plains and Midwest will continue to blast across the region, bringing more snow, rain and wind that have shut down airports and left thousands without power. The storms stretch from the Gulf Coast to the Midwest and are moving to the Northeast and New England. Parts of Minnesota were under a blizzard warning, with the city of Duluth particularly hit hard, leaving airline travelers stranded and thousands without power. In Michigan, snowfall is expected to reach 18 inches in some areas. About 325,000 homes and businesses were without power. Tornado watches were in effect over the Carolinas, but no tornadoes have been reported so far. A 70-year-old Chinese breeder, Dop Creole, has taken the responsibility to take good care of Tibetan macaques. Dop Creole has been the guardian for the macaques for 18 years since he retired from his position. He regards these creatures as his children and enjoys himself when interacting with them. Tibetan macaques are Level 2 national protected animals in China. Thousands of people protested across the country as outrage grew over the rape and murder of an 8-year-old girl in Jammu's Kathua and the sexual assault of teenager in Unnao. The protesters marched in Delhi, Mumbai, Chandigarh, Thiruvananthapuram, Bengaluru, Jammu and other cities, demanding that the government quickly prosecute those accused in the rape cases. Now, members of the Socialist Unity Centre of India took to the streets of India's eastern Kolkata city, condemning the recent airstrikes that targeted 3 facilities believed to be storing chemical weapons in Syria. The sloganeering protesters carried out a march carrying placards and burnt effigies of American President Donald Trump. Silk weavers in India's northern spiritual town of Varanasi are distressed over the luring sale of Banarasi saris due to the rising unauthorized duplicity of the patent product. Banarasi saris are among the finest saris in India, which is known for its gold and silver brocade and lavish embroidery. The saris are made of finely woven silk and are decorated with intricate design. Now let's take you through some stories from the world of sport. Former world number 1 Saina Nehwal beat PV Sindhu in an all-Indian final to claim the women's singles badminton gold at the 2018 Commonwealth Games. Now, despite Sindhu's status as India's top-ranked shuttler, the 28-year-old outwitted her younger compatriot to claim top spot in the podium with a 21-18, 23-21 win. That victory took India's gold medal tally to 26 at the Games, while Sindhu had to settle for the silver. Now, in the men's singles competition, India had to settle for the silver medal, with Kidambi Srikanth going down to Malaysian great Lee Chong Wei in the 3 games. World number 1 Srikanth had beaten former world number 1 Lee Chong Wei as India claimed a historic mixed team gold medal by beating Malaysia in the final. But the three-time Olympic silver medalist Lee Chong-wei avenged that defeat with a vintage display, coming from a game down to win 19-21, 21-14 and 21-14 to claim his third singles gold at the Games. Now, India also had to settle for silver in the men's doubles competition after the team of Satvik Sairaj, Rankireddy and Chirag Shetty lost to reigning Olympic bronze medalist Marcus Ellis and Chris Landridge. The English duo thoroughly dominated the match and cruised to a 21-13 and 21-16 win in just 13 minutes. Now, no Indian men's doubles team had ever reached a Commonwealth Games final before this. Over in table tennis, Manika Batra ended her sensational campaign by winning the mixed doubles bronze medal. Batra partnered with Satya Gyanasekar to face another Indian pair of Sharath Kamal and Mohammad Das and eased to the victory in straight games 11-6, 11-2, 11-4. That meant the 22-year-old Batra ended the games with 4 medals, 2 golds, 1 silver and 1 bronze, more than any other Indian participant. Now, there was also a bronze in the men's singles table tennis event with Achanta Sharath Kamal to take his tally to 3 medals at these games. Kamal beat England's Samuel Walker in 5 games in the playoff, winning 11-7, 11-9, 9-11, 11-6 and 12-10 to bag India's 8th table tennis medal in the Gold Coast. Now, over in the squash, Deepika Pallikal and Joshna Chinnappa failed to defend their women's doubles title and had to be content with silver this time. The Indian duo were beaten by New Zealand's Joelle King and Amanda Landers Murphy in straight sets 9-11, 8-11. India still ended the campaign with 2 squash medals, doubling the tally from Glasgow 2014. Now, the 2018 Commonwealth Games have come to an end at the Gold Coast, with India finishing 3rd in the standings. India claimed 26 golds, their 3rd best showing at the Games, with shooting contributing the most to the tally, with 7, weightlifting and wrestling bore 5 golds each, as India finished the Games with 66 medals spread across 9 disciplines.